Welcome to Club Book Baths. I'm Tabby, an avid reader and professional relaxer, and this is the official book club for bookbaths.com. If you like to read books and listen to other people talk about them, then this is the place for you. Each month, I will be choosing 3 new readers to join me as we discuss our book of the month. Make sure to visit bookbaths.com and subscribe to stay up to date on my latest reads and what suds I'm soaking in. Feedback is always appreciated. Leave me a comment below and hit the subscribe button. Be sure to check out the links listed below as well to get your must-have book bath items. Thanks for joining me on this book club journey. I look forward to turning some pages with you. Hello, and welcome to episode 1 of Club Book Baths. I'm your host, Tabby, and we are here today discussing the book, The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I do have 3 amazing guests with me today, and I'm really excited to introduce you to them and for you to get to know them. So without further ado, we're going to play my favorite game, the How Do You Know Tabby game. Okay, guys, are you ready for the rules? They are simple. The first thing you're going to do is state your name. The second thing you're going to do is tell us, me and the listeners, your favorite genre to read. And the third thing you're going to do is tell us anything significant about yourself you think the world should know today. And the last thing you're going to do, the best part, is say how you know me. Best game ever, right? Okay, Taryn, let's start with you.
Okay, so my name's Taryn. And my favorite genre is probably, it's a tie between fantasy, whimsical, and romance. If I can get both, that's like the best.
Okay.
So I am an esthetician and a massage therapist, but my favorite title is Mommy to my 3-year-old. And I met Tabby in high school. We were in a play together. She was one of the main protagonists and I was the antagonist.
And it was a fabulous play. If you should ever need to search Jupiter High School 2007 Spanish singers, I don't know. It was definitely anything better than on Netflix right now. Okay, Kevin, let's go with you next.
Okay, I'm Kevin. Let's see, my favorite genre to read. I will honestly pick up anything. Now, there's no guarantee I will stick with it, but I will pick up at least anything. But I really like Stephen King. He's one of my favorites. So, yeah. And I am a web developer for Florida Virtual School. And I know Tabby through my wife, Julie, who is amazing. And Tabby will attest to that. And yeah, that's it. Did you want me to tell the story about what my first thought of you was, though?
Yeah, your first thought is really fun, and I think we should share it because it's
okay. So my wife Julie and I have 2 children, and our youngest one has red hair, very bright red hair. Neither my wife nor I have red hair. But the first time I saw Tabby was at the school where they taught together, where Tabby and my wife taught together. And I saw her across the lunchroom, and I thought that could be my son's mom.
And today, I make sure Kevin's wife knows that I am her son's mother. Yeah. She swears she carried him for 9 months. Who's really to say? Well, Kevin, I'm super happy you're here with us today. Couldn't have done this book club without you. And last but not least, Melanie.
I'm Melanie. My favorite genre is probably romance or anything with a strong female protagonist, like a coming-of-age story. I met Tabby 10 years ago, I'd say, through an ex-boyfriend. The only positive thing to come out of that relationship.
So true. Yeah, I think it was my favorite thing that came out of my friendship with him, too. So now we're friends for life. And if you missed it, I am Tabby. If I have to share my favorite genre, definitely romance, preferably anything steamy and filled with lots of angst is preferred. And I want to give a heads up to my awesome guests who already know this, but anyone, listening, there was no way I was going to be able to get through this book club discussion today without like lots of notes. So if I look off camera, this is the only way I could have helped summarize the story and guide us through this, or you would have gotten, I would have had no idea what the book was about anymore because I finished it a few weeks ago. So without further ado, let's get into The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. I've been so excited to talk about this book, and let's just do it. So I'm going to kind of summarize a little bit, and as I summarize, we're going to stop and have some talking points, and it's going to be awesome. All right, so Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. Let's get into it. Some of us finished this book last night, Kevin, and some of us finished it a month ago or so, Taryn. So we are going to all start back at the beginning and kind of recap what happened in this story. So the book starts off with a newspaper article from March of 2017 explaining that 60s it girl Evelyn Hugo is auctioning off 12 of her gowns to raise money for breast cancer. It is revealed to us that Evelyn's daughter passed away from breast cancer the previous year. The newspaper article also reveals to us that Evelyn is currently widowed from her 7th husband and residing in Manhattan. In chapter 1, we are also introduced to Monique, a 35-year-old magazine writer, and even though Monique is low on the totem pole at her job, Evelyn's publicist reaches out to her boss, insinuating that Evelyn wants their magazine to cover the article on the dress auction. However, the only thing the email says is it's Monique Grant or Evelyn's out. This leaves us wondering, why Monique? When Monique visits Evelyn at her apartment to begin the interview, she learns that Evelyn wants her to write a book about her life, not merely a magazine article. So as we read The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, we should really come up with a nickname for that. It is a mouthful. We'll do that later. But the book flashes back. What, Kevin?
Let's call it Seven Husbands.
Seven Husbands. I like that. Should I really call it Seven Husbands? We won't go there yet.
Get ahead of yourself.
We won't go there yet. Okay. But if you read it, as you know, the book does flash back from present-day Evelyn to Evelyn's past. And present-day Evelyn is her telling her story to Monique. So we're going to go back to her past and talk about husband number 1. So we flash back to Evelyn's life in New York. And she was super young. Her mom had just passed away. She was left with her neglectful father. And she marries husband number 1, Ernie Diaz, at 14 years old. Her intentions to marry Ernie were strictly to get a free ride to Hollywood. And once in Hollywood, it didn't take very long for Evelyn's career to take off. Her agent wanted her to be seen on dates with some of Hollywood's elite. And after 4 years of marriage, she divorces Ernie Diaz. Which brings us to husband number 2. Goddamn Don Adler. Don was a fellow movie star, and him and Evelyn were madly in love with each other. This ended up being a short-lived romance between them when Don developed a drinking problem and started physically assaulting Evelyn. It is while she's married to Don that Evelyn meets Celia St. James. This is obviously significant because as her marriage to Don ends, her secret relationship with Celia begins. So I think this is a good place to stop and discuss because that was just a mouthful. Melanie, let's start with you to get the convo going. What did you think of hubbies number 1 and 2? What's worth mentioning here?
I feel like husband number 1 as a person is insignificant. I mean, he's nothing special other than the fact that he's what gets her to Hollywood. I think what's fun about him though is you get to see the development of her character of taking what she wants, in that kind of almost like cold facade or cold persona that she starts to develop as she moves her way through Hollywood. But other than that, Ernie's a dud. Husband number 2 was just a disappointment because I felt so bad. It's the first time she felt real love in her entire life. And then he turns out he's an awful person. And of course, bright side, she meets Celia, but it's such a heartbreaking story from where it started.
I feel you on that. What do you guys think?
Dawn, it started off great. You thought Evelyn was finally getting her fairy tale, and it just went so badly.
I agree.
He was a huge letdown.
And I was so excited when we first met Dawn because I was like, what a fairy tale, moves to Hollywood and gets to shack up with like this amazing celebrity, and they like totally are just smitten with each other, and then he just like beats the shit out of her on the regular, and I was like, oh, I wasn't ready for all this. So that was definitely.
And cheats on her.
Yeah, and yeah, we haven't even mentioned that he cheats on her all the time.
Yeah.
So he clearly has no respect for her.
And it's at this time too that we first meet Celia. So it's interesting the way that their friendship developed during her marriage with Dawn.
Can we touch on that so we kind of don't forget as we keep going? Can someone explain to maybe the one YouTube listener one day what it's like when Celia and Evelyn meet for the first time? Like, what's the dynamic like between those two?
Well, it starts as frenemies, definitely. Like, I definitely thought Celia was going to backstab her. They were kind of using each other, but it just evolved to when we find out the secret, which is that they are lesbian lovers.
Ooh. Spoiler! We're going to spoil it real soon. No, it's not a spoiler. Yeah, I agree. When they first met, I didn't trust Celia. I was like, why are they going for milkshakes? She's using her to be seen with Evelyn. This is manipulative. I didn't like her. I'm still not really convinced it didn't start off as really wanting that because they never really spelled it out for us. But, I mean, I did grow to love Celia, which we'll certainly get to.
It reminded me a lot of in the newer Charlie and the Chocolate Factory movie where like all the kids meet for the first time and the two girls are like, we're going to be best friends. And then they just turn and they're like, yeah. Like that's what I felt like Celia and Evelyn were like. Like they had no intention on actually being friends. They were like, I think even this early on, like they just knew that they were going to be using each other.
So true. Little did they know.
Little did they know.
Well, I think at least for now, that's really all that's worth mentioning with hubby number 1 and hubby number 2. We are going to eventually come back to Dawn, but Ernie was short-lived, nothing really to touch on. He was a free ride to Hollywood, and she got hers. So let's move on to husband number 3. Now that Ernie and Dawn are behind us, that brings us to Mick Riva. So we know Mick Riva was a rock star who had made comments about wanting to marry Evelyn in like a newspaper article or something. Meanwhile, one of Evelyn's housekeepers spilled to newspapers that Evelyn and Celia had become more than just friends. So in an effort to keep their relationship a secret, because remember, this is the 1960s, being openly gay was not really a thing at this point. So in an effort to keep their secret a relationship, Evelyn succeeds in scheming to sleep with, marry, and annul that marriage to Mick in one day. Well, really like one night. Kudos to her. Took me 7 years to get there. Like, 5 years. How long was it, Melanie? I had to wait for a ring for like 6 years. She does it in one night. Anyway, neither here nor there. But following the annulment from Mick Riva, Celia and Evelyn experienced months of bliss and happiness, enjoying being together without worrying about the media. But this ended when Evelyn found out that she was pregnant. Celia was furious that Evelyn actually had sex with Mick, even though Evelyn felt like it was to protect their relationship. So let's stop and chat again. Taryn, what did you think of rock star Mick Riva?
I disliked him so much. And now Evelyn's not innocent here. She was using him, but I found him so disappointing because he was so easily used. Everything she wanted to do to manipulate him, he fell right into the trap. And it's just disappointing to see that it is what it was. He just wanted her for appearances.
Yeah, she was using him, but he was also definitely using her.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
The thing is, though, you mentioned that he was falling into the trap. Was maybe she falling into the trap too? Maybe she fell into his trap.
I don't know. Sorry, you go first.
Sorry. It as it's portrayed as Evelyn's telling the story, she's talking about what she's doing to him every move she's pulling and why she's pulling it, as far as like she says she's going to be bad in bed so he won't want to sleep with her again, and everything she says works.
Yeah, because he wakes up the next morning, or is it that night? It's the next morning. He wakes up and he's like, this isn't gonna work. So I mean, she got hers in the end. It worked out because the media ended up not worrying about her and Celia anymore. She had the marriage annulled, but it did put another stamp on her marriage card. That was indeed her husband number 3. So we don't like Mick. We think he's shallow. If they ever make a movie, though, I'm really curious to see like what his persona is as a rock star, because it sounds like he was just really, really beautiful and steamy. So I look forward to the movie. Okay, so Celia and Evelyn split, and now Evelyn's bestie, Harry, who's one of the producers with the company she works for, ends up driving her to Mexico to terminate her pregnancy. And after 3 years of being together, Evelyn and Celia remain split, and then they don't end up talking for another 5 years. So during that 5 years that they don't speak, we're introduced to husband number 4, Rex North, very cool name. The purpose of the marriage to Rex was for each of them to grow their careers in the Hollywood scene. And really that's exactly what it did, because Evelyn's career skyrockets, Rex's skyrockets. They never even slept together. Their marriage was strictly business. So while this is also going on, Celia marries quarterback John Braverman. Spoiler alert, Celia's marriage is also fake. Plot twist, Evelyn's bestie Harry is in love with Celia's husband. I don't have enough hands to like explain how this works. And Rex, which is she's still married to, hubby number 4, remember, is in love with another actress, and she's pregnant. A lot happened in this time. Evelyn and Celia are reunited at an award ceremony in a steamy bathroom hookup session. Rex and Evelyn divorce. Evelyn marries Harry. So before we dive into the marriage of Harry, let's talk about husband number 4, Rex. Kevin, what did you think of Rex?
Well, one thing I love about Evelyn is that she knew who she was, and she never tried to hide that from herself. She only tried to hide it from the world. And she knew that she was a sex symbol. She used it to her advantage, even going as far as using that status to steer the narrative of her life, which we see in the marriages with Nick and with Rex. I liked the marriage with Rex because it was mutually, they both knew it was fake. They both knew going into it that it wasn't a marriage about love. It was a marriage about boosting status, boosting sales of the movie theater. But then this book, like, it really opened my eyes and made me kind of like wonder, like, in the Hollywood that we know in real life, like, are there marriages like that? Are there movie stars that are like just married to boost themselves up? And who is?
I didn't even thought about that, but do you think this means I still have a chance with Justin Bieber?
Oh, absolutely.
Because like I'm feeling positive now that you say it.
Yeah, I mean, you totally could.
I'm gonna put it out there into the what is it? I'm gonna put it out there into the world. I want good juju. Dwayne Johnson, where you at, boo boo? I love my husband. I also love The Rock. Very good point though, Kevin. I hadn't even thought about that, but I feel like that must be true on some level.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just don't know who. Like, I'm trying to think. I mean, like, maybe like Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie. Like, what if they only did it to like boost their own whatever?
Well,
I think Kristen Stewart and Robert Pattinson were definitely fake.
Absolutely.
To boost the Twilight sales.
Yeah. And
explain the affair.
I hadn't even thought about this, guys. We need to like call Hollywood and get some real information on this. I feel so light.
Down low.
Never watching these shows again that talk about celebrities. But I do agree with you, Kevin. Like, I really kind of liked Rex. I liked that it was amicable between them and they knew they were using each other. I know there's one scene where Rex is teasing her and he's like, well, let's just have sex once. And she's like, no. And he kind of backs off, like he's cool about it. He knows they're friends. And I really can't hate on Rex.
Yeah.
What I like with Rex is he was respectful the whole time, even with like the dissolution of their marriage, because he fell in love with someone because it was fake. He still didn't want to embarrass her. That's why they agreed to fake the affair, so they both got out of it clean.
Yeah.
Very true. Melanie, do you feel a certain way about Rex?
I agree. I liked Rex. I like that he probably, other than Harry, was probably like one of the most respectful husbands that she had, regardless of whether or not their relationship was real or not.
Yeah, very true. Very true. And I really just like the name Rex. I mean, I don't know if I'd ever name like my future children Rex, but I would put it on the potential list for sure. All right, are you guys ready to dive into husband number 5?
Oh, yeah.
Brilliant, kind-hearted, tortured Harry Cameron. So for quite a while at this point in the story, all is more than perfect for Celia, Evelyn, John, and Harry. I'm gonna do fingers like that. Here's Celia and Evelyn. Here's John and Harry. Even though Celia's married to John and Harry's married to here they are. Here's everybody. So Evelyn and Harry even have a baby girl named Connor, which Celia and John are okay with. I would personally say, after reading this, that this was like peak happiness in the book for Evelyn. But as we know, all good things must come to an end. So secret marital bliss ended when Evelyn does an X-rated sex scene with former hubby Don, the wife beater. And without discussing it with Celia, Celia is furious and ends the relationship. So what do you guys think about Celia ending the relationship? Do you think she was right to end the relationship over this sex scene? I know it's a tough one, but I'll jump at once.
I don't know that she was necessarily right to end the relationship. I think she was right to be mad, especially because not only did Evelyn come to her and ask for permission, but the problem is she asked for permission after she already did it. And I think had she asked before, and if Celia said no, then I think she would have respected that. I think, maybe, hopefully, I don't know. But she did it afterwards. She asked Celia afterwards, and I think that's what caused the biggest issue. I don't know if it was right to leave or not.
I agree with that. I don't know that I mean, it's hard. Jealousy is very different for everyone. Sorry, my book bath's mascot is trying to get on camera. I think jealousy is different for everyone, but I think Celia, we already know at this point, is a very jealous person. And I just feel like if she felt confident in her relationship with Evelyn and felt secure, she could be angry by all means. Throw your biggest tantrum, get you some flowers and candy and presents, but you've now like thrown out your relationship with the woman you claim to just be in love with. And I felt like it was definitely hasty, and I don't know that I would throw out.
Knowing that she's also in the business and knows that the sex scene wasn't real.
Yeah.
It was completely staged.
That's how I feel. If anyone should understand, it should have been Celia, since she was such, she was an award-winning actress and she's in the biz. And also, she's the one that suggested Evelyn do the movie in the first place.
Very good point.
But when she suggested it, though, she didn't know that there was that scene. That scene came up after.
And I know Dawn was on board right from the start. It was like she knew that there was this good movie opportunity. Then Dawn was in it. She was okay with it, but I agree. I think like with all those things considered, she maybe could have not broken up with them.
Yeah.
And that would have been the end of the book. And that would have been
True. We would have been like, Taylor Jenkins Reid. Boring. Interesting. Okay. Let's keep going, because at this point it's like only getting crazier. So Celia and Evelyn break up, and then like things can't get any worse. John Braverman dies of a heart attack. Harry starts heavily drinking. Mind you, all of this is going on, and we still have the flash forwards to present day, where Monique is still conducting these interviews with Evelyn, and we still are like, well, why Monique? Why is she this special book writer? We don't know. Am I on this page? Okay. So one of Evelyn's directors admits to her that he's in love with her, and then her relationship with Harry is truly just a friendship, so they end up getting divorced, and Harry's okay with it. Which brings us to husband number 6, Max Gerard. While married to Max, Evelyn quickly learned that he was more infatuated with the idea of Evelyn than actually Evelyn herself. Celia goes on to win an Academy Award, and Harry encourages Evelyn to reach out and bury the hatchet. The two of them meet for dinner, where Celia tells Evelyn that she has a chronic obstructive pulmonary disease and maybe has 10 years to live. Evelyn tells Celia that she wants to spend the rest of her time together with her, and that Evelyn eventually divorces Max. Harry tells Evelyn that he's in love with someone else for the first time since John, something he thought would never happen. And right after we find out he's met like his second love of his life, he's in a really bad car accident. And we know this is where things start to turn in our story. Evelyn and her driver are the first ones on the scene of the car accident, and Evelyn can see that Harry was behind the wheel and smells of booze. The passenger was dead. Before they took Harry to the hospital, Evelyn makes the decision to move the dead passenger to the driver's side to protect their daughter from thinking her dad was a drunk driver. We find out that the passenger was Harry's lover, and I do think it's important to note that Harry's lover was black, because it shows that not only at this time was Harry trying to hide the fact that he was in a gay relationship, but also that he was trying to hide that he was in an interracial relationship. And Harry, as we know, ends up dying in the hospital, and I cried like a baby. I swear we're almost going to stop again. Evelyn goes on to tell their daughter the truth about her history with Celia. Their daughter is struggling with the loss of her father and getting into a bad scene in New York. So Celia proposes to Evelyn that Evelyn marry her brother Robert, and that the four of them move to Spain. They do. Robert ends up being Evelyn's last and final husband, and they marry to continue to cover the relationship between Evelyn and Celia. He turns out to be a wonderful man and a crucial father figure to Connor, and it's during this time that the most significant marriage of Evelyn's life takes place. So, we're going to talk about that marriage. So I want to talk about the marriage to Celia. But do we have anything we want to say about the car accident? Like, what did we think about what Evelyn did, moving a body or having the driver move the body? I mean, a lot just happened. Oh, and she left Max. We didn't even talk about Max. Max who? What do we talk about here?
So let's talk about Max first.
Okay.
I didn't like him. He was overly infatuated with her, wanted her to be in movies, and I could tell from like the first time that he met her, like the only reason why he wanted her to be in his movies is to be closer to her. And even then, it was like, oh, let me film you in this scene where you're coming out of the water naked, and whatever. And then the sex scene later was one of his movies, and he was the director, not the actor, obviously. But it annoys me how quickly he turned on her. Like the morning after, and they woke up on their honeymoon, and she wasn't the beautiful Evelyn that's portrayed in movies and in Hollywood. She was the I just woke up in the morning Evelyn, and he was just like, I don't like this, just done. And like that was it. I hated that. That made me really mad.
Max was my least favorite husband because I thought he was so shallow. He went from being so over the top to like, I can't look at you in the morning, and like, thank God my husband can stand to look at me in the morning because I fear for what that looks like. But I think that's awful. You're with the most allegedly beautiful woman in the world, and you don't like what she looks like in the morning, that you want to cancel your honeymoon. I'm like, you are the worst. So I don't know. I think I'd rather take Dawn a little beating here and there over this guy.
I'm going to play devil's advocate a little bit here.
Okay.
I don't like Max, but is it partly Evelyn's fault? Because he fell in love with the image she created. And she put that image out there, and they only really knew each other in a professional atmosphere. So that's how he knew her. So it kind of is her fault too.
That's a good point. They never really dated.
Nope.
You're right, because she really does. Throughout this story, which we're going to definitely get to at the end too, she really has this facade of what her personality is like. And I do think I thought she was a little quick to jump into a marriage with Max. Like, it takes one sentence. He's like, I've always been in love with you. I want to marry you. And she's like, oh, hey, Harry, best friend, baby daddy, going through trauma and stuff. Let's get divorced. I was like, that's a little hasty, but to each their own. Okay, so let's talk about the marriage to Celia, because as we know, it wasn't necessarily on paper, but I would definitely define it as like the most profound marriage she has. And I want to stop and read no, I don't want to read that yet. What did you guys think about how they got married?
I thought it was so sweet, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't out in the open. It wasn't like a big public to-do. And I think it showed Celia that Evelyn was finally ready to just love her and not love the attention on herself. And
I didn't even think of it like that. You're so right.
And then the fact that they did it with like hair ties, like this is the ring, and I thought it was cute. What
did you think, Melanie?
Yeah, I feel like Evelyn's fatal flaw is just like the whole facade that she presents. So I thought it was really cool to see just like a raw moment between her and Celia. And even though legally and to the public it means nothing and nobody knows about it, it was just such a beautiful moment in comparison to the other weddings that she had had.
It was so sentimental, and I agree with you. I feel like it was like very raw. You're getting one of the few times we really get to see who Evelyn really is and just how in love she is with Celia and vice versa. And you know, you could have the biggest wedding in the world and it might not mean anything. And I think that's definitely a trend we see throughout this book. So I really like that. Any other thoughts on their wedding or their marriage? They're laying in bed when they get married. So any other thoughts on that before we take a turn for all of the sadness? Okay.
I actually got more emotional over I didn't cry at all in the book. I'm not trying to be like macho or anything, but I'm also just trying to like read really fast. But I got more emotional at the marriage than I did at Harry's death. Because I was like, this is like, I didn't know that Harry was going to die, but just the fact that like their marriage was just sort of like, this is a friendship thing. Like they knew that it was a friendship thing. But then the fact that like Celia's marriage to Evelyn, like that was so sentimental to me, and like I got more emotional out of that than I did out of Harry's death.
Well, I wish I could be strong like you, and I'm going to say on the record, officially moving forward, I'm no longer going to tell people I'm not a crier, because while I'm not a crier, I have been crying so much reading books lately. So I think it's not that I'm not a crier. I think it's just that TV and movies suck. So books get my heartstrings. So we're going to move on. They are married. They are so happy in Spain together for 10 years. And Celia then eventually dies of this disease. And I do want to just read this one little paragraph from the book. And I will say it was like a rainy day when this happened. Emotions were high. But I remember I was sitting on my couch and I was like, I'm not okay. But in the book, Evelyn says, I had lost her, my love, my Celia, my soulmate, the woman whose love I'd spent my life earning, simply gone. Irrevocably, I hope I said that right, irrevocably. This is what happens when you teach first grade. You no longer know how to speak. I'm ruining the moment. And forever. And the devastating luxury of panic overtook me. And yeah, just reading this and thinking about, man, Evelyn has spent her whole life just trying to be with Celia, which snuck up on her to begin with. She never even knew she was bisexual. She meets Celia. She's genuinely so in love with her as a person. And then they're finally in this happy place together in Spain where they don't have to worry about the media. And she dies. And just reading those words, I felt so heartbroken for Evelyn. And, you know, like the Leo that I am, I'm probably imagining it was like me. And it was sad. How did you guys feel reading this scene?
I think it was heartbreaking. They wasted so much time not being together because they were both so stubborn. So when Celia passed, it was like she got to be happy for like a minute.
Yeah. It was that fast. It was like one chapter. Everything is great. It's been 10 years. Oh, she's dead.
Yeah, it was devastating.
Kevin, not one tear, not one tear.
I mean, my contacts may have been acting up a little bit,
Yeah.
okay?
I think it was really a tear, not your contact. Well,
Okay.
for the
We'll
record,
do-
it was a tear. We record that in the notes? Okay.
All right.
Okay.
I like, though, that she said that 3 times in the book. Devastating luxury of panic. That happened 3 times. Harry, Celia, and Robert.
Our daughter? Connor?
Oh, the daughter. That's right.
Daughter.
Yeah, Connor. That's where it was.
Didn't that happen 3 times in the book?
I think it did,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
At least happened twice.
Say it again. Okay, so that's an important thing. What do you call that when an author repeats something in a book multiple times? Isn't that like a literary element? What is it, Taryn?
It's poignant.
Poignant. Okay, that's what we're going to call it today.
But I mean, the fact that she didn't say that about any other point in life was, and that just goes to show like how impactful that is. Like Harry's death, she had this huge moment of having to do all this stuff, or not having to, but she did all this, these things of moving him around. And after his death, then she had the devastating luxury of panic. And then after Celia died, then she had the devastating luxury of panic. And then her daughter, the same thing. And that never happened. And all the other things that happened, good or bad, in the book, like even being beaten by Dawn, like she never had that panic moment.
Yeah.
And that just goes to show that, like, throughout the entire book, she was really driving her own narrative and saying, this is my life, this is what I'm going to do. But in those raw moments, then that's when she had those moments of panic.
Very well said, Kevin. That was very beautiful. I like what you said.
I didn't even write that down. That just came off the top of my head.
We're going to have to write it down later because, like, we're taking a turn for some, like, deep discussion. I'm all for it.
Okay. All right.
Okay. So Celia dies. It is tragic. Kevin says it best. Rewind if you need to hear it again. But we're going to jump forward to a flash forward to present day at this point in the book where we have Evelyn and Monique. And we finally learn why Monique, and it is that Monique is the daughter of Harry's lover who died in the car accident. And she spends her entire life believing that her dad was a drunk who died behind the wheel and killed another man. So this explains why Evelyn wanted her, number one, to write the book, because Monique would be able to do so subjectively rather than somebody who would paint Evelyn to be this like amazing person. Evelyn says a few times she's not a good person. She does not want this book to paint the picture that she's great. She thinks she's awful, and she wants that perspective to be within that book. So number one, why Monique should write the book, and also because Monique is going to earn millions by releasing this book, and who better than to accept that money that someone who had to lose her father, and grew up this whole time thinking one way about him when it was not the truth. So later in the book, Monique says that one day she will forgive Evelyn. So if you were in Monique's shoes, do you think you could forgive Evelyn?
No.
Yeah.
I couldn't. She carried that with her whole life, thinking her dad was a drunk driver, and in some way, by doing that, it kind of abandoned his family because he chose alcohol. So that, no, I wouldn't be able to.
What do you think, Mel?
I agree. I mean, first off, I don't think Evelyn, she says, like, she's not looking for forgiveness or anything like that. But it's regardless of whether or not she knew that this man, like, you changed basically, like, potentially the trajectory of this young girl's life by switching bodies and making it appear as though her father had made this horrible mistake and been irresponsible.
This is so tough. Like, I can't help but think about my own dad and the relationship that we have. And I know I'm certainly blessed. I have an amazing dad. We have an awesome relationship. And I know not everyone has the same. And I think about, what if I grew up my whole life thinking that I hated him? I can't even imagine what that would be like. So in a lot of ways, I feel like there's no way in hell I could ever forgive Evelyn. But I also feel like Monique's in a unique position where she is really seeing the genuine truth from Evelyn and why she did what she did. So she kind of sees the just human perspective of why Evelyn did what she did. Not that it's right, but I can see the internal turmoil. I don't know. I hope I never have to be in Monique's shoes.
It's also good that she finally learns the truth about her dad,
Yeah.
and realizes that he's not the one that was the drunk driver. So all her life she was thinking that he was the one that was driving drunk, and yes, it's Evelyn's fault that he was in the driver's seat. I think it's kind of a good closure for Monique that she learns that her dad was not the bad person that she may have thought he was.
I think this is also a good lesson for, again, the one YouTube person who might be listening to us. Don't drink and drive, y'all. Because even don't let your friends drink and drive. You want to be switched and your kid grow up thinking you murdered someone? It could be you.
See, I thought you were going to say, here's a good lesson, don't switch the bodies. But that's
you should always switch the bodies. You should never let your friends drive drunk. You should always protect yourself and your friends. If Melanie is a body to hide, I am there. Again, for the record, so we think. Okay, so in the final chapters, we learned that Evelyn has breast cancer, just like her daughter did, and plans on taking her own life. She does so by drug overdose when she's basically done telling Monique her story. Monique goes on to write a magazine article about her time with Evelyn. And I wanted to read you this last tidbit from the article because it gives me goosebumps every time. And if you were like Taryn and finished this book a long time ago, it's just epic. Okay, so the last few paragraphs of the book go like this. What follows is an excerpt from my forthcoming biography, The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. So is this a book within a book? To be published next year. I've settled on that title because I once asked her if she was embarrassed about having been married so many times. I said, doesn't it bother you that your husbands have become such a headline story, so often mentioned, that they have nearly eclipsed your work and yourself? That all anyone talks about when they talk about you are the 7 husbands of Evelyn Hugo? And her answer was quintessential Evelyn. No, she told me, because they are just husbands. I am Evelyn Hugo, and anyway, I think once people know the truth, they will be much more interested in my wife. Goosebumps every time, y'all. And yeah, I thought it was like such a good ending. Like, number one, it's a book within a book, and it really just goes to show, while everyone knows Evelyn Hugo for the 7 husbands that she had in her career, nobody really knew her except for a few. So overall, what did you guys just think of the book? Did you like it? Did you hate it? Was it boring? Taryn, what did you think?
I really liked it. Well, for one, I'm a sucker for romance, so there you go. But I really liked the old Hollywood setting. I wish there was more books set in that time, so I really liked that. And I think there was a lot of complexity and a lot of character development, and I really look for that in a book.
What about you, Kevin?
Like, honestly, I would have said the exact same thing. I was talking to my wife earlier about this, and I said, like, this is not a book that I would have normally just picked up on my own. But I wanted to read it for this book club. And like I said earlier, my wife has also read it before, and she really liked it. So it's not something I would have picked up, but I absolutely loved it. There was fantastic character development, and I really ended up loving the old Hollywood setting. And I also wish there were more books like that.
Melanie?
I loved it. I liked that it was like you were switching between like a juicy like tabloid and then a Hollywood memoir almost, and it made you kind of like Kevin mentioned earlier. I kept thinking, well, how will it make you look at like old Hollywood relationships differently? Because there's got to be some truth to that, whether that's in the past or today. And you can't deny like the character development of Evelyn and seeing how she changes throughout the book. Was really intriguing.
And I think even the character development of Monique, too.
Yeah.
Like, she, at the same time that she's doing the interviews, she's going through her own divorce. And so I think that like, Evelyn gave Monique the courage to take what she wants. And it leads to Monique standing up to her boss and getting Evelyn to do the photo shoot for the magazine. And then she comes to realize that wanting to divorce her husband isn't necessarily a failure, but it's she's able to clearly communicate that to him after spending the entire book avoiding his texts and phone calls. So there's character development there too for someone who really wasn't in the book that much.
I know, I'm right there with you. And now you make me want to skip to question 5 and go back to question 2, because now I'm feeling excited about talking about Monique. But I do agree with you guys. I love this book. The way I choose my books is I just see people talking about books on the internet, and then I just pick one. I don't ever really read what they're about. I had no idea what this was going to be about or any of the themes going into it. So it was like a very welcome surprise, and I just loved it. I will say I did read by Taylor Jenkins Reid, Daisy Jones and the Six, and it's similar in the sense of you're following kind of a rock band and a fellow female rock star, and it puts you back in time of what it might have been like being just like a rock star. And I loved it. I don't know that I loved it as much as I love this now, but I don't know. I feel like if I had to go back and look and discuss it, I might be like, oh no, it's so great. So I do want to jump ahead though now and talk about my 5th question I had scheduled and we'll go back. It's all great. But so there is a whole story happening in the book with Monique, and it's separate from Evelyn's past story. And we really haven't touched on it much. Kevin did just kind of briefly talk about it. We know Monique is getting divorced, and at one point her husband, soon to be ex-husband, starts calling her, shows up at the apartment, says he made a mistake. But we do see Monique's character develop, because at the very beginning, again, she's low on the totem pole at work, to everyone at work is like obsessed with her because she landed this huge story, and they need to kind of like bow down to her to get her to get Evelyn's story. So we know her character evolves. What do you think inspires that change in Monique?
I think it's Evelyn rubbing off on her for sure.
Yeah. I mean, Evelyn repeatedly talks about just taking what you want and doing what you have to do to get what you want. Yeah. And like I said a few minutes ago, like that leads to her standing up to her boss and saying, no, I'm writing this book. It's not going to be for the magazine. But at the same time, she goes to Evelyn and says, if you want this book to be done, you need to do a photo shoot for the magazine. And so she manipulates the other people to do what she wants to get what she wants. So it is totally Evelyn rubbing off on her, and she's seeing how Evelyn is able to get what she wants, and she just does it too.
And I love that. I like that you bring that up, because that was probably one of my favorite things. At one point, and I mean, even me, I would have never stood up to someone like Evelyn Hugo and said, no, I'm not doing that. And she really finds her confidence and is like, no, you're either going to sit for a photo shoot or I'm not going to write your book, and puts Evelyn in a position where she really has to go along with her. And I was kind of like, all right, Monique, you do you, boo-boo, I love it. So yeah, Monique had quite the story too. And she obviously wrote this book, or Taylor did. One of them wrote this book, so it all worked out in the end for them. I don't really have a good question here. I tried to come up with a good question, but I just want to talk more about Celia, because she was a huge part of this book, but we never really got Celia's narrative. So what do you think is important to discuss about Celia or mention about Celia? Melanie, let's start with you. Well, talk about my girl Celia.
Well, I think you make a good point. First off, is like I wish that there was more in there just about Celia herself, because you get that like she comes from a wealthy family in Georgia. She was plucked from Georgia for acting, but I feel like I wanted more from her other than just the love story or the transition between like, is she using Evelyn to like their actual love story together. So that would have made the story like a little bit more well-rounded to me. But I love like their interaction. I feel like whatever it is that Celia has just makes Evelyn become such a better person. And I feel like it's something like intangible about her.
I like that. You just made Celia so sweet. I agree with you though. I would want to know more about Celia too, just because you know, just having Evelyn's narrative and knowing that Evelyn was such like a strong female character, I'm really wondering how Celia, what her perspective of Evelyn was. Like, we kind of have an idea of how people viewed her based on her telling the story and how people kind of did just bow down to her and like were obsessed with her looks. But Celia, knowing her as closely as she did, I want to know, you know, why was she so jealous? Was Evelyn doing things unknowingly that caused such severe jealousy issues? What was really going on there all the time?
Celia was a little self-sabotaging. I mean, her whole happiness, she said, like, placed it in Evelyn's hands. She wanted to be with her, but she kept breaking up with her over everything. She was pretty insecure. Now, some of the times Evelyn deserved it, but some of the times I think it was just Celia's insecurities getting to her. You kind of see her jealousy come out after Connor's born, and she like stakes her claim on Evelyn over breakfast with Harry. And you're just kind of like, you don't need to be jealous of Harry, but it's just in Celia.
Super awkward too.
Yeah.
I feel bad because she's eating this like gross oatmeal, and I was like, rude.
Nobody wants oatmeal over eggs. Nobody.
No. And especially not bland oatmeal, Seal. Jeez.
Do you want raisins? No, I want eggs.
Scrambled, girl. Kevin, what did you think of our girl Seal?
Yeah, I wanted more of her story, but I also understand that it's from one perspective. Although, and I may be jumping ahead to another question here, but I do like how we got those little bits and pieces of the newspaper articles that sort of gave us a different perspective. Although that perspective was typically wrong, but it still gave us like the public perspective of Celia.
Yeah, true. She was a huge star. I mean, she won more awards than Evelyn. So it is interesting that she was so insecure, but we also, through the tabloids and such, have this picture of her where she's up there too, man.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'm going back to question 2 now. I'm a little scatterbrained because you guys are just having a nice time chatting with you. But we know that the celebrity version of Evelyn was adored by many, similar to maybe how we would have adored Marilyn Monroe. I honestly can't think of anyone in our like current time that compares. If you can, by all means, tell me. Because I think of like Marilyn Monroe and Evelyn as like this timeless beauty, and I don't know. Please tell me if I'm wrong. Do we have any timeless beauties? Everyone feels like a little trashy as far as celebrities go. Am I wrong?
I pictured Marilyn the whole time I read this.
Yeah, only Marilyn.
I think it was heavily like influenced by her.
Yeah, I'm going to establish moving forward, I am the Marilyn of 2020. So I am the next Evelyn Hugo. Red hair. Anyway, besides that, did you guys like Evelyn or not? Why? Let's start with Kevin. Did you like Evelyn?
I'm gonna say yes and no.
Okay.
I kind of like the aspect that she just knew what she wanted and she went after it. But a lot of times I didn't agree with how she did it. And she hurt a lot of people along the way. But at the same time, a lot of people hurt her along the way. And it really hardened her. So yeah, I did like her, but also no, I did not. And I feel like she really softened up to Monique at the end too. Even though there were times when she would like kind of put Monique in her place and say like, no, this is how I want you to portray me. Even though she's like, I'm not a good person. Like, I feel like she sort of formed a relationship with Monique at the end.
Yeah, she definitely softened up at the end. And I'm right there with you. I am a little like jealous of Evelyn because she has such confidence. I mean, and she had confidence at 14. And I know they said it early in the book, like she had like huge boobs for 14-year-olds. And I will not even bring up what I look like at 14. But we definitely had, confidence there. But she was overly confident. I'm like, where does that come from? And can you send some my way? Is it the boobs? God, I gotta fix that.
It's a scientific fact. That's where confidence is stored.
So, I'll have to evaluate my future.
Kevin, are you speaking from experience?
Well, I had huge boobs at 14, so. Man.
Julie has huge boobs, and his wife is very confident. And she's probably going to watch this and hate that I just said it on camera. I'm sorry.
My wife is gorgeous.
She's amazing.
In my life, she is my Evelyn.
Oh, stop it.
Oh.
Terry?
I think from a reader's perspective, I liked Evelyn. She's interesting. From a person's perspective, I didn't like her. There's one instance in the entire book where Evelyn's 100% right, and that's where she says she's a terrible person. She's so self-serving. She doesn't care who she hurts along the way, and she's never apologetic about it, ever. Even when she's apologizing to Monique, she's like, I don't really care if you accept it because I don't really care. I would do it again.
True. Gosh, now I'm changing my mind. This is crazy.
She's very interesting, but she's kind of awful.
Yeah.
To me, she's kind of the villain of her own story.
She is. She's absolutely the villain of her own story, which is why I think she goes on to say she's an awful person. She knows it.
Yeah.
And she is smart. Like, I do wonder how she became so smart. She's 14. She's never in school. And then she starts acting. Here I am just trying to read books to learn anything. And she's figured it out far more than I have. Yeah, interesting. So we love her and we hate her.
Yeah.
Concur? Perfect. So this is my favorite question I'm asking, and I know why. So I'll just ask it, and I'm going to ask it to Taryn first. But what role do the news, the tabloids, and the blog articles have in telling this story?
Okay, I'm really glad you asked that. So the story, more or less, even though it's kind of in Monique's perspective, it's really coming from Evelyn. It's in Evelyn's perspective. So you're seeing who Evelyn really is, and then you're seeing the planned moves Evelyn's making to put out that persona, and the articles are reflecting how the public sees her. So it really shows you how everything she does behind the scenes pays off because it's all planned.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a very interesting perspective to see how everyone else reacted to the moves she planned, and just kind of like the chess game she played with her own career.
And see, for me, this kind of reminds me of like present day social media. I think on any one of our Facebook or Instagram pages, we are the Evelyn of our own Facebook page. But we also have the liberty to paint a certain persona of what we look like. And that is what all these tabloids and news articles do. I mean, they definitely, have some negative things too, but a lot of the times they just make everything out to be one way when her whole life was something else. And not saying my whole life on social media is a lie, but I post a lot of cat pictures of them looking adorable, where they have some times where they mostly look adorable. That's a point. But you know what I mean? Like, how many times have you heard of a friend in like a shit relationship, and then the next day it's like, oh my God, look how cute we are. It's like that on social media. And I thought that was a trend throughout the whole book, and I was feeling really amped about it as we were reading it, because I was like, this is a lie, and this is what we do every day in 2020.
But I love how you see the move that she is calculating, like Taryn said, it's a chess game basically, and then you see how that's written in the article, like, oh, they, so and so and Evelyn were seen here, and boy, they sure look like they're in love. Maybe this is the one for her, and like that's not actually the truth.
Yeah.
Like, that they were seen together because she strategically worked, it's like with her and Harry, like going up and making out, just to get paparazzi to come after them. Like, she planned that, and then that was in one of the articles.
Mm-hmm.
Melanie, what did you think?
I think it goes back to how impressive it is that she is so cunning, and plots everything so well, regardless of her level of education and like where she comes from. And it's pretty impressive, honestly, that she has all of these plans, and you see it play out so well. Like, I don't think there's a single thing that really ultimately backfires on her when you read the tabloid report of it.
You're right. Nothing ever backfires. I mean, she really messed with a murder, and it's like everything worked out great for her. I mean, she did lose her daughter to breast cancer, and then she had to kill herself. But besides that, you're right. Nothing really backfires besides that. Okay, last question before we get into our two next segments of our show today. And that is, would you recommend this book to a friend? Melanie, would you recommend this book to a friend?
Absolutely. I think, as you can see in our group here, it appeals to a lot of different people. I feel like there is romance, there is deceit, there is drama, there's loss and there's sadness. So I think it's something that is appealing to different people, but I feel like it's something that for me, like, I read fairly often, but it's hard for me to just go through and finish a book and like want to continue flipping pages. In the way that it's organized with the different husbands and the character development and the plot development, like I couldn't stop trying to see who the next husband is, or like the development of her relationship with Celia.
What about you, Karen? I said Karen. I was trying to say Taryn and Kevin at the same time. So whoever speaks first gets to go. Would you recommend this book to a friend?
I would. I think it's like a beach read. It's very easy to get through. It's very enjoyable. You don't get hung up on it. It's not too deep. So I would. I can't see many people disliking it.
Okay.
I agree with that. I agree with all that. I would absolutely recommend this to someone. And one thing I really liked about it is the chapters themselves were long, but it was in different, like, shorter little segments. And so, like, as I was reading, I could pick up and just read a section, and then I can put it down and go back to work and do whatever I was doing, and then pick up and read another section, and then go back and do what I was doing. So I feel like it wasn't like, I didn't feel like it was a huge time commitment, which is really hard for me, having, like, my full-time job and having kids and a wife and, all these other things I'm doing, Animal Crossing. So, yeah. So, I mean, I would recommend it because I think that it's a super easy read, but there's so much going on. And yeah.
I would recommend this book to a friend. I almost want to like rephrase my question. Would I recommend this book to a stranger? Because I don't think I have any friends that are like homophobic, but I want to recommend this book to like a true homophobe. Is that how you say it? Homophobia? An asshole. I want to recommend this book to an asshole. Just because I feel like this paints a perfect story of what like genuine love is. It's not about your gender. They fell in love because they just loved each other, and it wasn't about being bisexual or being lesbian or straight. It was because they loved each other that they were together. One broke up and got back together, and broke up and got back together. But you get it. And I think that is something that a lot of people don't have like much insight on, and I want to just shove this book down their throat. So, which brings me to our next segment, meaningful quotes. So, quick backstory. For anyone listening, the four of us, plus our producer down below, Club Book Bass, Christina, holla, met briefly last night to kind of get to know each other, so this wouldn't be a complete train wreck today, and thank God we did that, or it would have been a complete train wreck today. But I asked everyone to provide a quote, and if they hadn't, to think of it moving forward so they can share it today. And Kevin texted me afterwards last night and was like, here's the quote I'm sharing with you. What do you think? Can I share it tomorrow? And I was like, just so excited talking to him. So I'm going to let him share his quote first because it was, oh my gosh, like he just like made my whole night and my whole life.
I really just wanted to text you because I didn't want to be a huge shock considering that you're really good friends with my wife. So my quote was this: being bisexual didn't make me disloyal, Evelyn says. One has nothing to do with the other, nor did it mean that Celia could only fulfill half my needs. And the reason why that was so meaningful to me is because after 12 years of marriage, last September, I came out as bisexual to my wife. On a surprise birthday trip too for her.
Tell me that part.
But her first questions to me were, have you ever been with a man? And the answer was no. And then her second question was, do you feel the need to be with a man? And the answer to that is no. And it really got me reflecting, like this book really got me reflecting on, and that quote meant so much to me because being bi doesn't mean that I need half of my needs fulfilled by a man. My wife fulfills all my needs. But being bi just means that, like, if I weren't married, the gender of anyone in a prospective relationship. So when Evelyn says, being bisexual didn't mean that Celia could only fulfill half my needs, I was like, that's it. Like, that's how I explain this to my wife. It's been like 8-9 months, but finally I was able to say, like, this is what I mean. Like, I don't ever feel the need to go try to be with somebody else. because you fulfill all my needs, but that's just what bisexuality means to me.
I love it. I think like anything I've heard from the LGBTQ community, especially about like being bisexual, it's like anyone that's bi kind of gets like the shit end of the stick, because there's like a lot of jokes about, you know, not knowing what you want or whatever. And people make jokes like you can be gay or you can be straight or you can be trans, and we make jokes like, okay, but bisexual is like, yo, what? And I was like, no, this book paints a perfect perspective of like what it really might be like being bi. And then Kevin said that, and I was like, oh, you are so welcome that I chose this book.
Yeah, like she was truly, truly in love with Celia, but there were also times that she was truly in love with other people too, and men as well. So it wasn't like she was just. A lot of people think that people that are bisexual are just confused. Like, I don't know if I want a man or if I want a woman or whatever. It just shows that you can just love anybody. So that's what I really love about this book.
Well, if you should ever leave Julie, which you should never, because obviously we know, oh my God, there's a frog on my, oh God. Daniel, there's a frog. Sorry, I interrupt this broadcast because my cats are about to eat the frog. Sorry. We were just having a great conversation. I'm really afraid of frogs, and it's jumping. It's totally fine. Christina, quick cut back. I forget what I was saying. I'm literally that afraid. I was saying what you were saying.
Think about leaving my wife.
Yes. Oh, if you should ever leave Julie, go get the frog over by the door. No, other door. That way. Yes. Okay. You know, if you should ever leave Julie, which you'll never because she's perfect, I just love that you're just open to love anyone. And I think that just means you have a really huge heart. And I was really happy that you shared that with me last night and felt comfortable enough sharing it today.
It is so funny that you said that, because you said that I have a really huge heart. Not because I'm like trying to like boast or anything, but I haven't told very many people. And like I told you last night, I've told maybe 5 people that I'm bisexual. And it's like my wife and people that I really, really trust. So I guess this is my coming out. Yay, hey.
My one YouTube listener.
But when I told one of my friends, and he's gay, and I told him I was bisexual, and he's like, that makes sense. That just goes to show that you love a lot of people. Like, you have a lot of love for people. And I was like, yeah, I do. Like, I do just genuinely love people. And I have my moments where I'm just like, oh, you're an asshole. But at the same time, like, yeah, anyone. I'm open to anyone.
Well, Kevin, I appreciate you sharing that with us. I'm so proud you're able to do it here at Club Book Fast. And yeah, pretty amazing stuff. I didn't share that with the girls ahead of time because I was like, we're going to just wait until he says it. Thank you again for sharing. Again, sorry about the frog outburst. We're not going to cut this scene because I do think it was funny, but just for back information, before we started, my beautiful baby cat chased a frog into like the under part of our cabinet, and I couldn't get it. The Tupperware is still there, and as we were having this in-depth conversation, it just started hopping and the cat started going, and I don't want him to die. Anyway, Taryn, what beautiful quote do you have to share with us today?
I feel so unprepared because I didn't write it down, but I'm pretty sure it's at least 80% this.
We'll go with it.
I think it's when Evelyn and Monique are at lunch, and Evelyn says that it's not her responsibility to make sense to her. And I like that so much because it's so Evelyn. She doesn't care what anyone thinks. It's not her job to care what you think. It's just her job to be herself. Just spoke to me. Yeah.
That kind of goes along with what you were saying about like the reasons you also hate Evelyn, because she is so unforgiving. So I like that was your quote.
Yeah.
Melanie?
Oh, that just goes to show, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. That just goes to show,
go ahead.
That Evelyn just really knows who she is.
Very self-aware.
Yeah, she is.
Again,
probably because she loves herself so much.
It's the big compliment.
So my quote was, when you realize you can tell someone your truth, when you can show yourself to them, when you stand in front of them, their response is, "You're safe with me," that's intimacy. So beautiful because of all of the different relationships she had, especially the fake ones, or I mean even the real ones that she had. It's like, other than Dawn at times, like there was no true intimacy by that definition other than Celia.
I love that quote. Melanie actually shared that quote with me early on when we started reading the book, and she shared the personal reasons it was so sweet to her, and I was just melting with her because yeah, it's so perfect, and I just love that was your quote. Makes my heart smile. So my quote, gosh, it's a little inspiring, a little scary. I feel a lot of things right now. If you're tuning in to YouTube 20 years from now, hi, it's 2020. We're in the middle of a world pandemic, and we might be opening up our public schools. That's really scary for us teachers who don't want to die or feel like we have to sacrifice our health to babysit children, because that's what will be happening when we go back to school, not educating them while I'm here. So I actually wrote this quote when I opened the book weeks ago before this was even a thing, and I look back at it today as I question my career. And it says, when you're given an opportunity to change your life, be ready to do whatever it takes to make it happen. The world doesn't give you things, you take things. If you learn one thing from me, it should probably be that. And I love teaching. I don't plan on leaving it anytime soon, but this for me was number one, so Evelyn, and she is so successful because she takes what she wants and doesn't wait for the world to give it to her. And in a time where I'm trying to be creative and think about what other things I could do if it came down to it besides teach, I just keep looking at this quote and remembering that I'm going to take from the world and not wait to see what it's going to hand me, which sounds like COVID, if I'm being honest. So speaking of being a teacher, that brings us to the vocabulary segment of our show. If you're still listening, I swear we're almost done, but the teacher in me could not say no to this. So I asked each of my contestants to pick one unknown word and share the definition and in a sentence. Before I keep going, Taryn, did you ever find a word, or can we explain to everyone how brilliant you are?
No, I never had a word I got hung up on. I seem to have known them all.
Taryn is literally the smartest person I know. I probably only knew 3 words in this whole book. So
I feel like such a jerk for saying that. No, I knew it all. But
I'm really just inspired by you. Be Evelyn. Don't be sorry. Own that you know all the words, girl.
Right, I'm brilliant. It's my big brain.
You do have a big brain. I have a big brain too. I just have a small head. It's hard to tell. So, Kevin, what was your word?
My word was antithetical, which means mutually incompatible. And it came at the very beginning of the book. And it's kind of funny because throughout the rest of the book, you see how antithetical Evelyn is with a lot of people that she is, married to. She's mutually incompatible with every single husband, but she's finally compatible with Celia.
Nice job, Kev. One new word for our listeners. Go use it in a sentence today. Melanie?
So mine, I found, or I highlighted when I was speed reading, and looking back, I should have known better, but whatever. I didn't know this word at the time. Conspiratorically. So suggest a shared secret knowledge with another person. Yeah, should have known it, but didn't.
So I didn't know any of the words. Let me say that again. You think I'm smart. You think I'm smart. You think I'd be smart being a teacher, but I feel like the longer you hang out with little kids, the worse your vocabulary becomes. So my word is subservience. Please don't laugh if you already knew that word, Taryn. And it means willingness to obey others unquestioningly. This is the sentence I came up with after an extensive Google search. I'm still not sure if I'm using it correctly. I'm going to keep trying though. I was counting on my mom's loyal subservience to plan a beautiful bridal shower for me. I hope that makes sense.
Or you could say.
Kind of good, right? Okay, so I'm pulling open my calculator now because we're going to get an average rating on this book. And if you're not on Goodreads, get on Goodreads. We rate books 1 out of 5 here. So I'm going to go first. I'm giving this book a 5. I loved it. I'm also a really easy rater. Taryn, what would you give this book?
So my 5s I reserve for my favorite books that I will reread again throughout my life. Harry Potter, the likes of that, the big books in my life. So this one, I thoroughly enjoyed it, so I will give it a 4.
Deal. We accept your 4. Melanie?
I'm an easy grader, so the fact that I was able to like get through it quickly, and there was never a time where I was thinking like I have to read this because Tabby needs me to read this. It's a 5.
Love it. Kev?
I like being different, so I'm gonna go with 1. No, I'm just kidding.
Allow it. Get out.
I will say that I don't give a lot of books 5 stars. I have to really love the book. Like Taryn said, like it's saved for like the best of the best. And this book really, really spoke to me. And it's not something I would have normally read, but I absolutely loved it. So I give it 5.
A 5?
Yeah.
I feel like such a jerk now.
No, you're not. Okay. This is how averages work, which makes our Club Book Baths average of 4.75, if I did that correctly on my phone. Who knows at this point? Okay, guys. I've asked each of my guests today to choose one book to submit for our August Book of the Month, and I will be turning their choices into a poll on our Club Book Baths Facebook page. So make sure you go and vote whenever I'm done posting this and make a poll. Whichever book wins, that guest will be joining us again in the August discussion, which means I really only need 2 discussers unless my book wins. Then I will need 3, and which kind of just makes me sad because I don't know how I'm going to do this with anyone else moving forward. But yes, so my book I chose was The Vanishing Half. I don't have it with me. I think it's by Britt Bennett. I have no idea what it's about. I love the cover. Taryn, what's your choice?
My book is The Shadows by Alex North, the thriller.
Awesome.
Pick my book.
Melanie?
Mine is When I'm Gone by Emily Bleeker.
Awesome. Kevin?
Mine is an older one from 2011, and it is The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern.
Which has been on my list for quite some time, so I'm not opposed to an older book by any.
I'd be quite happy with that too.
Yeah. So, but pick The Vanishing Half. I mean, or The Shadows. I mean, or Melanie's book.
Probably The Shadow.
Pick all the books. And I'm gonna have some closing statements, and then look, he already has The Shadows. And I swear we're done. So please, to all of my one YouTube listeners out there listening in, go check out my blog. It is my current retirement plan. It's book-baths.com, and subscribe so that you're always up to date with the pages I'm turning and the suds I'm soaking in. I want to give a huge, huge thank you to my guests today, Kevin, Melanie, and Taryn. And down below, we have Christina. She's muted and has my logo, but she is helping me edit and make this video awesome so everyone can listen to it. So seriously, could not have done this without you. And again, a big thank you to any of my listeners out there who have joined me on this book club journey. And yeah, thanks so much for listening to episode 1. We're going to smile and wave at the camera and then take a minute to chat with each other, and we'll just cut it out. Bye, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Woo!